Is that past? Okay, so I think we're going to make a start. Thanks for coming. A few people wandering in. Okay, shall I begin? I think we should. There's probably just always noise here, so hope you can. Everyone hear me okay? I'm sure you probably can. Good. Okay, thanks. So, hi everybody. Welcome to the session. Thanks for coming. My name's Andy Goldring. I'm working for the Permaculture Association, but while I'm here today, I feel like I'm kind of working on behalf of something bigger. A kind of connected and emerging group of organisations and networks that think we're going to achieve more by working together, not just on our own. So I'm going to tell you about the Control Shift project, quite briefly, maybe about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to show a film, which is about 5 minutes long, I think, and then we're going to do an activity, because I think one of the things that we really need is to spend some more time kind of doing some planning. So we're going to do a bit of planning together, or not necessarily planning, but some thinking together, and synthesize maybe some of what we've learned here, and think about how we could respond to the big challenges we've got together. So here we go. Oh, is that right? Okay, I'm going to say a little bit first, and then I'm going to show the film. So, Control Shift is about working to help align organisations that are working for a fairer society and a healthy environment across sectors. So, many different organisations in food and farming, in environment, in social well-being, in renewables, in housing, are working on very similar goals. We're trying to make a better, fairer society. And we're not talking to each other very much. We've got lots of bits of the puzzle, but they're not in the same box. And although we might share many of the similar aims and goals, we don't really know that, and we haven't spent that time working out where our purposes align. And I guess one of the drivers for this was actually being here a couple of years ago and feeling like, come on, we've got all this fantastic stuff going on, but where are we connecting up together? And recognizing that Brexit is this huge disruption moment that's coming. And what happens when there's a big disruption is there's an opportunity for change. Whether you like Brexit or not, things are going to change. And the question is, can we help to influence that change for the better? So, in a way, we're trying to build resilience in response to climate change and other existential threats. And we're committed to bringing more power to local communities and regions. I guess that the organisations and networks that have been involved so far think that actually a lot of the solutions that we need are local. And that means building up our capacity to work at the local level, to work in our cities, our municipalities, just come from the bioregion session. So it's about how can we support more effective work, more connected work at the local level, but then also how can we bring together our different organisations' kind of policy demands in a more coherent way so we can influence what happens at the national level too. And in a way it's an unbranded space where we can build collaboration and plan collective action. It's not the Permaculture Association's initiative, it's not Shared Assets initiative, it's not Transition Town Networks initiative, it's our collective initiative. And the brand isn't really important, it's about a kind of a neutral space for working together. So I just wanted to say a little bit about why cross-sector. What does that mean? Why is that important? And I want to give a kind of perspective really from, say, this conference here, the Oxford Real Farming Conference. So Many of the challenges that are facing farmers that are here are things like, say, for new entrants, where do they get their housing from? How do we sort out the kind of accommodation issues? Or with livelihoods, how do we make a living from farming? Or how do we use our renewable energy well so that we can create new income streams and meet our climate change commitments and so on? The thing is that whilst we've got a fantastic group of farming organisations and networks here, broadly speaking, we don't have the housing sector isn't here in any substantial way. The community wealth building sector isn't here in any significant way. And the renewable sector isn't here in any significant way. So some of the kind of key sectors that could be really providing some of the solutions that we need here aren't here. And vice versa, we're not there. We're not at the housing network conferences where they're saying, oh, if only we could grow more local food and deal with those 8.4 million people that currently don't have access to an adequate diet. So the reason we want to create a space where we can do this cross-sector working is because we can help each other more. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll go to the film now. So if I could ask, stick the film on, that will probably sum it up better than I did.
I think what we're doing is revolutionary, and it has to be revolutionary for a very simple reason. We are in serious trouble. You know, when we got the beast from the east and that Arctic wind blew, and we realised that the Arctic was 20 degrees centigrade warmer than it should have been, we know we are in an existential crisis.
Climate change is extremely serious, and it is not being dealt with because the political system has failed us.
So it seems as though we're taking 5 steps forward and 20 steps back. So there's that core, that 1% who seem intent on controlling money and land and access to things, whilst the majority of people suffer and struggle.
It's just so much injustice and unfairness and that disconnection with each other, and especially with politicians, with actual people, real people, you know. That disconnection, I think that really kind of frustrates me, you know, like people are not listened, people are not valued.
People who are invested in the ways of the past, who have the power, will create the barriers. And they still have most of the tools and they have the resources. So it's quite a challenge for people who can see possibility for the future to really get that coming together is the point, is the task. Because unless we do that, we'll never create some sort of real challenge to those who have power.
We've set ourselves a really, really big challenge. We want to change the way the country works. Right? We want to bring more power from corporations and national government to people in their communities so that they can drive a kind of change for earth care, people care and fair shares.
The impetus that brought a lot of us here, which was Brexit, which is that great shock to the system, whatever you think of Brexit, that this is a moment of change and that we're galvanizing this moment of change to create the sort of world we want, the sort of world that many of the partners here are creating, that we can, and that together we'll create something that is greater than the sum of those individual parts.
My aspirations for the current world are that we figure out the skillful ways to work together, that we realise that we have so much more influence and control and possibility in the places where we live than we might think that we do. And at the moment we all seem to be increasingly isolated from each other. So for me the real work is finding those ways to bring people together with the least barriers to engagement, creating conversation, opening spaces where people can ask what if together.
Many of us who are here have already been converted. So we hope we will not just keep going, but we will get everybody on board.
As masses,
people don't understand or don't want to understand that they have a voice and they can change things. And we go with the status quo and go with the flow because it's easier. And I think we can change things. And I just wish people would realise that the more of us that speak out. And it's not about changing things to meet one certain type of person's views or a certain group's views. I think we've all got a place on this planet and we can all make the changes that we want to see.
I see hope from local solutions. I think that we have massive challenges ahead of us that we need to scale and address, but solutions exist, they're out there. They're in practice, they're happening at community levels, at local levels, at grassroots levels, across the world, and we need to connect to, learn from, and lift up those solutions.
Great. Yes, thanks to Ethical Consumer. Really did a great job there. And if I could go back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, so I guess just to summarize a bit, it's like we've all got a piece of the puzzle. And, you know, like at an event here, Oxford Real Farming Conference, we've got so many wonderful pieces. And we spend our time going from workshop to workshop, marveling at each piece of the puzzle. What a wonderful piece of the puzzle you have. And sometimes we put a couple of bits together and make a little block. Sometimes we might even put a couple of blocks together and make something that looks really quite interesting. But what I think we need to do is we need to find the places and spaces where we can put more of those pieces together, make more of those connections. If I look around at what's happening in the food and farming networks and the renewables networks and the community wealth building, we have got some jewels, some most wonderful projects, networks, exemplars of what's possible. But we're only going to make that normal, I think, by working together. So these are about 40 or so of the partners that joined us last year at the Control Shift event. Actually, about 100 organisations were there. We're going to be meeting again in May in Stoke-on-Trent, which is part of our commitment. First one is Wigan, second one Stoke-on-Trent. We want to make sure that we are doing this work in places which are usually forgotten, that aren't on the kind of conference circuit. You know, if Brexit showed one thing, it's that a lot of people feel left out. So let's make sure we go to the places where people are feeling left out. Oh no, that's either the last one or... Yeah, okay, activity. I'm going to go to the call to action first, because the activity might just overspill and you might never come back. So, the call to action. Come to the event in May, bring your organisation or your network. Have you got a piece of the puzzle? Have you got something you think, actually, this is a really important part of our future? And the other organisations and networks need that piece to help us make a really beautiful picture together. Sign up to the mailing list. Elizabeth's going to pass that on. So if you're just curious and want to find out about the event, we can send you some information in a few weeks' time. If you want to get involved, you could email me. There's other people's emails I could have put, but I thought I should just put my own for now. So andyg@permaculture.org.uk, spelt wrong. Hey, I didn't get any sleep last night. And if you want to help with a working group, we've got a structure and a process for how to get engaged. We're trying to do our kind of process in a really transparent and engaging way. If you happen to have a couple of £1,000 I can have to make the event truly participatory and engage people that wouldn't normally be able to afford to come, do let me know. If you've got a couple of £100,000 and you want to help me to create a series of events across the regions, working with local partners so that we can really ramp up this work, let me know. Help with publicity. You know, there's lots of things to do. It's a big project. We're trying to change the country. And yeah, I need your help. So, if you are inspired to get involved, that's how. But what we're going to do now is an activity, and it's a kind of condensed activity. Oxford Real Farming Conference wanted me to come here, and we started off with ground plans, but there's so much that wants to be on the programme that the kind of big participatory mapping exercise is a bit smaller. But I still think it's important to spend some time together thinking about how we can respond to these big challenges that we face. It's like an example of what we're doing at Control Shift. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into some groups around the challenges that we think, the big challenges that we think that we're facing. So I'll ask, has anybody got a challenge they would like to have other people help think about? And if other people want to think about it, then we'll write it up, and then we'll go through until we've got maybe 4, 5, 6 challenges. And then we'll get into groups, and then we've got 5, 10 minutes to define the challenge, just a good enough statement that you kind of, okay, there's 2 or 3 sentences which kind of summarize that challenge well. Then how could it be taken forwards? What are the potential solutions? What have you heard about here? What are the other things that you know about? What are some of the pieces of the puzzle that could be connected? And then who else is already working on it? Where are some of the tools, the processes that might be already working well? And then if you want to, you can put your email addresses in, and I'm going to photograph them all and send that information back to each group. So that was the plan. So we'll just kind of see what happens. I'll ask if anybody has a challenge, and if you do, we'll do it. And if you don't, we might have some questions and answers, and you can have some time off. So that's up to you, really. So, okay. Does anybody have a challenge they would like other people to help explore? Sure. The mic's going to come around.
I feel it's really important that we work with organisations like Parliament and local government and draw together people who've got experience in how to recreate organisations so they're functional and so they're inclusive and so that one person doesn't come just to the fore. I really hated it when the Green Party stopped having principal speakers, for instance. And I think it's really important that we try to start putting those things into action. So how would you summarise that? Is that like a participatory policy making, or? No, it's about actually building organisations where, at the moment, the way I see it is that in a lot of politicians are people who are dysfunctional people, not functional in their own communities, and they end up in politics because they've got nothing else to do with their lives. And I really, because the rest of us want to get on with our lives and have a bit of balance. So what we need to do is create organisations that don't need people who are there 24 hours a day, for instance.
Okay.
I could go on about this for
Okay, so rethinking organisational
structures and how to make them work. So
Great.
that all those things, because we can't do any of those things without laws.
Okay, thank you. So has anybody else got a challenge they would like to share? That we could work on together?
Hi, I guess it's one that many of us share, but a frustration with a lack of awareness or sometimes even seeming caring about the state of the planet in people around.
Speak up, Hannah, sorry.
Sorry, a lack of awareness or even kind of caring about what's going on in the planet, when it's much more interesting to know about, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here or something. How do we raise awareness in our local communities?
So raising awareness about challenges and the solutions, or awareness raising.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody else got one? So there's one over here.
From that, a lack of sense of urgency around the numerous ecological and climate crises.
Yeah. Okay. So, but how would you phrase that as what's the challenge there?
How you generate a sense of urgency.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. So how to generate a sense of urgency around these key issues? Fantastic. Anybody else? Okay. Steve has one.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, I'd be interested to have a chat about landscape scale land management.
It seems to me it involves a multiplicity of stakeholders with different objectives, and kind of doing it right and doing it collaboratively could have multiple positive benefits from, you know, sort of water management, flood risk management, through biodiversity, through recreation, through local employment and enterprise initiatives, etc., etc., etc. And that's a sort of, could be a sort of bioregional kind of project that could, at a catchment level perhaps.
Okay, so that's kind of, how do you do kind of multi-partner landscape management for multiple benefit? Great. Okay, thank you. And then there's one here.
How we can collaborate with or capitalise on the rise of veganism and interest in kind of vegan lifestyles. There seems to be many similarities in the kind of some of the motivations for going vegan as some of the issues that we're discussing here. So it'd be interesting to see how we could work together.
Great. So again, if you could just define, so what do we write on the card?
How do we collaborate or incorporate the vegan movement into the sustainable food and farming movement?
Ah, that's an interesting challenge that throws up many different responses. And then, was there another? And then another?
So there's lots of brilliant groups and organisations working in this space, but they all have very different cultures and they have different priorities. And to support collaboration, you need to rise that up the priority list and overcome those cultural differences. So it's something about how do you ingrain the resource and time and raise collaboration up in the priority list of organisations.
Right, brilliant. So how do we build collaboration into our organisation's priorities? Or, yeah, great. And then Peter had one, and then there's one here, either way. Then I think we've probably got, well, let's see.
Yeah, mine's slightly a definition of the awareness raising, in that it's how do we break through the sort of silos and the barriers that we've got and connect people with connect their thoughts about their diet with food production and nature. Because I think there's a breakdown there, and how do we break the silos down? Because at the moment that disconnect is the biggest problem. What's
your headline challenge?
How we reconnect people's understanding of their diet with food production and the natural world.
Okay, so connection between people's diet and the food and farming system. Great, and then Peter? And then I think we'll probably stop unless someone has a really urgent challenge.
Yes, sorry. There seems to be a disconnect between the urgency that you identified and the kinds of things that we're all talking about. The urgency requires very rapid change. I mean, on the order of sort of 8% a year or something like that. And all the stuff that we like to talk about here is 1 or 2% a year, so it's not enough.
Yep.
So, well, what else is there? There's all the big stuff. I mean, we like small, and we like bottom up, and we like local, and all that sort of thing. But then, my challenge is, how do we tolerate and allow the big stuff, which is now necessary because we've left it too late, to complement what, all the small stuff that we're so good at and we like so much.
Okay, brilliant. So could you summarize that in a word or two, or no, just in a phrase?
How to agree to allow the big stuff to happen. I mean, it's we tend to think of it as the enemy, but it's now necessary.
Okay, so it's the big, bold, dramatic stuff that maybe government's going to have to do, like no one can drive beyond 55 miles an hour, that kind of thing. Yeah. Huge wind farms, etc. Yeah. Okay, so is there enough? Has everybody heard something that they would like to work on? Maybe get some kind of visual kind of signal going. So, or oral thing. So let me know. Is there something that you're all willing to work on? Yeah. Okay. Great. So if the person that's made the challenge could come and take their challenge and hold it up, and then others can come and cluster around you. If nobody comes and clusters around your challenge, don't worry. That's okay. Join another challenge. And basically, the rest of the time is your own. Just make this work. Do some shared thinking together. synthesize some of the things that you've been learning here maybe. So initially, if you can just really get that sheet and then hold them up. Okay. Okay, so can I just check, is there anybody that's kind of not found something or is not sure what to do, or are you all happy now? Yeah? Okay, go for it. Fantastic. So thank you for that. Spend the rest of the session doing that, and if you want to spend the rest of the day doing that, and if you want to set up a society to make it happen, go for it, because we need to be activists at this time. So yeah, thank you so much, and I hope to see you at the Control Shift event on the 8th, 9th, 10th of May in Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah. And the email list is going around. Hi. Hey, how are you? Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, that's fine. Go for it. The next event. Control Shift event. The next one.
Oh, I like that.
My great